This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Ready? It's on? Recording? Okay. Thank you so much for having me. Mamish Panim Chadashas Bokan. I think it's appropriate to come here this week. Dasam Aviram said, Loyal Eretz Zavas Cholav Udvash Haviyosanu. And here the Yeshiva brought us Mamish El Eretz Cholav Zavas Cholav Udvash. Baruch Hashem, beautiful Yeshiva. And we wish Yeshiva and all the Bachrim tremendous Hatzlacha in this new Makayim, Lahagdol Torah Lahadira. So we were supposed to start at 6, but we came a little bit late. Now that COVID is over, everybody spends most of the day parked in their car on the Garden State Parkway. And took a little bit longer to get here. So supper will not be later than 9 o'clock tonight. Okay, we'll try to do it quick. Yeshiva said the latest 8:55, so we'll try to get you a little bit early. Okay, so we'd like to speak a little bit about Korach. What was Korach thinking? First, let's try to understand who did Korach get on his side. So the Gemara darshans the pasuk, Vayakumu Lefnei Moshe v'anoshim b'nei Yisrael chamishim u'masayim nesiei eda kriyei moyed anshe shem. He got 3 kinds of people. Nesiei eda. So the Gemara darshans, what are nesiei eda? Miuchadim shebe'eda. Chashuva people. Like my good friend Reb Nassan, who he didn't want me to get him into the drasha. But it doesn't mean I don't listen to him. I want to thank Reb Nassan very much for spending 7.5 hours driving me here. And also, I want to thank Reb Eliezer Bark for getting me water. He said I shouldn't get him into the drasha, so then I remembered his name. I knew it. Okay. So he got Miuchadim Shebe'eda. He got, at the end of Seder, you have to keep the guys up. Especially they're going to be here for at least another 2 hours. So, okay. Basically enough with that, right? Miuchadim shebe'eda. Korach got chashuva people. Kriyei moyed. The Gemara darshans, shayu yoidim la'aber shanim v'lekvaya chadashim. He knew how to be ma'aber, they knew how to be ma'aber the year and to establish the months. Anshe shem, shayu lahem shem b'chal ha'olam. They were very famous. So famous, I understand why Korach wanted to get famous people. It looks better for him, right? If the Korach gets schleppers on his side, so then it's not going to look too good if the only people that support him are not chashuva people. So he got chashuva people, and he got people who were kriyei moyed, miuchadim shebe'eda. But the Gemara says he got people who knew how to be ma'aber the shana. What do you get people who knew how to be ma'aber the shana for? Being ma'aber the shana is a specific yediyah in a very specific mitzvah and Torah. What does he need people who know how to be ma'aber the shana for? I remember one time I was zocheh to go to Rabbi Yashiv. So standing outside of his door, there were 3 guys. One guy was holding a parsha of tefillin. One guy was holding cornflakes. One guy had another specimen, whatever it was. Because Rabbi Yashiv was a baki in these 3 mitzvahs, in all mitzvahs HaTorah. But why of all elements of Torah did Korach specifically get people who knew how to be ma'aber the shana? And then Moshe Rabbeinu says, Korach, boiker, in the morning, the Yevon Shem will determine who's the right one. Rashi says, why boiker? Says Rashi, Moshe Rabbeinu was telling Korach as follows. The same way there are 2 gevulos in the world, there are 2 definitive borders in the world. There's day and night, and day will never become night, and night will never become day. So too, you can't argue on the kahuna. So think about the analogy Moshe Rabbeinu was giving. He's saying the same way you can't change day into night, you can't argue on the appointment of Aaron HaKohen. Why of all things is Moshe Rabbeinu invoking day and night? Moshe Rabbeinu could have said, the same way there's something called gravity, and when you drop something it falls down, so too you can't argue on kahuna. Well, what's day and night? What does day and night have to do with it? The same way nobody could say day is night. mean, there are a million things in nature that you can't change. Why is Moshe Rabbeinu bringing up day and night? Here's one of the main reasons I wanted to give this share. The Gemara says in Bava Basra, Daf Ayin Daled, that Rabbi Bar Chana, on one of his adventures with an Arab merchant, the Arab merchant says, you want to hear the spot in the ground where Korach is swallowed up? So Rabbi Bar Chana says, sure. So the Arab merchant takes him to a place in the Midbar, and he says, take your spear and put a ball of wool on it and stick it into the ground. And they did. They stuck it into the ground, and it was singed. That was the spot. And the Arab merchant said, okay, put your ear down, listen. And Rabbi Archana put his ear down, and he heard they were saying, Moshe v'soirasei emes v'ahin ba'da'in. Moshe and his Torah are true, and we are phonies. Says the Gemara, the Arab merchant said, Kol tlasin yomi mahadilhu gehenim lahacha kebasar bekalachas. Every 30 days, Korach is kicked up to the surface of the ground, like meat in a cholent pot. You know, the meat, if the pot is boiling, every couple minutes the meat is kicked up to the top of the pot. So every 30 days, Korach is kicked up to the top of the pot. And that's what the Gemara says. Now, the Gemara doesn't say exactly when Korach is kicked up, just every 30 days. The Rashban says, maybe Baruch HaKodesh, every Rosh Chodesh. So if you would go today, today is the day to give this year. Every Rosh Chodesh, you go to the Sinai desert, you find a specific location, you put your ear down to the ground, and you're going to hear Korach saying, Moshe emes, Saras emes, v'anachnu ba'dohem. By the way, I happened to see today, there's a sefer Ben La'ashri, the Tzaddik Ranana. He asks, if that means Korach is doing tshuva. So if he's doing tshuva, then the Rebbe Shem should yank him out of Gehenna. Why is he still in the Gehenna? So he says, because the pshat is, Moshe emes, the Saras emes, but we're a bunch of phonies. Even now, this charata that we're saying, it's not real, it's not genuine, it's not min halev. It's not. We're badoim. We were and we still are. We are badoim. Okay. Bottom line is, why on Rosh Chodesh? What is it about Rosh Chodesh that Korach comes up every Rosh Chodesh and he says, Moshe emes v'soirasei emes v'anachnu badoim. Here's the big question: what in the world is this man thinking? There are 3 million Jews standing on Har Sinai, right? You know that there was no event in the history of the world that was authenticated by more eyewitnesses than the giving of the Torah. Nothing ever happened in world history that was seen by more people than HaKadosh Baruch Hu giving the Torah on Har Sinai. The only thing that comes close is, how long ago? 12 years ago, when Obama was elected, there were 1 million people at his inauguration. Since then, nothing came close. And even after that, nothing has ever been seen by more eyewitnesses than 3 million Yidden at Har Sinai see the Rebbeinu Shem giving the Torah. Now, where was Korach that day? Korach took the day off? No, Korach was there in Har Sinai. Now, Moshe Rabbeinu went up to the mountain, and Hashem spoke to Moshe, peh el peh, and the Ramban says on the pasuk, Ramban says on the pasuk, Bezois Teidon. The Ramban says that when Moshe Rabbeinu went up to Har Sinai, Klal Yisrael was elevated to the level of Nevi'im, so that they saw the Rebbeinu Shem speak to Moshe on a level of Nevuah peh el peh. Okay, so that means everyone was there, all 3 million people were there, including Korach, and Korach saw that Hashem said, Moshe, you're the only one, I want you to go up. So Moshe Rabbeinu goes up to Har Sinai, and Korach sees the Rebbeinu Shem speak to Moshe, and they knew for all eternity that Moshe Rabbeinu was the greatest person who ever lived. Korach was there, he didn't play hooky that day. So what does Korach think that Moshe is doing? He thinks Moshe Rabbeinu is making up on his own, chas v'shalom, that Aaron should be the Kohen Gadol. He thinks that Moshe Rabbeinu is making up that Elitzaphain should be the Nasi. Korach stood there on Har Sinai when the Rebbeinu Shem spoke to Moshe, and all of Klal Yisrael were elevated to the status of Nevi'im, and they saw the Rebbeinu Shem speak to Moshe and nobody else. Yeah, but maybe Korach thought Moshe appointed his brother. You know, in the 7 days of the Miluim, Moshe did the Avodah for 7 days. And every day, at the end of the day, they were waiting for Hashem Shechina to come down on the Mishkan. Nothing happened. On day 1, nothing happened. On day 2, nothing happened. On day 3, nothing happened. So the Lashon of Rashi is, you saw Nechlamim, they were embarrassed, they were ashamed, until Moshe turns to Aaron, and Moshe says, Aaron, you give it a shot, and Aaron does the Avodah, Vayirei Kvod Hashem Alo Yom Hayir. Now where was Korach that day? He was there. He saw Moshe Rabbeinu himself try to do the Avodah, nothing happened. He saw Aaron HaKohen, Bechir Sheba'am, he did the Avodah, and the Shechina came down. And Korach, really? I mean, for real? He's starting up with Aaron. He saw what Aaron could do. And then at the end of the Shivas Yimei Miluim, Parsha Tzav, Vayomer, Vayidaber Hashem al Moshe Lemar, Kaches Aaron, V'yesbanav Itoi, V'yeskol ha'eda, Hakel el Pesach Oyel Mayid. So, anybody know how big is the Oyel Mayid? Big. Okay, very good. Not bad. It's big. How many people do you think could fit Pesach Oyel Mayid? If you had to guess. I mean, how big is it? 50 amos by 100 amos? How many people could fit there? 5,000 people? 10,000 people? Not even. What does the Rosh Yeshiva say? So then what do we have? 5,000 people. 5,000 people. How many people fit Pesach Oyel Mayid, an opening day of the Mishkan? So Ve'ez Kol Ha'eda, Hakel El Pesach Oyel Mayid, all 3 million. So take a spot that holds 5,000 people and stuff 3 million people in there. It's not possible. It's not shaykh. Says Rashi, Zeh Echad Min HaMikrois, this is one of the few times where a small area held a lot of people. So the Pasuk says, this is the raya that Hashem told me to appoint Aaron, because I got 3 million people in an area that houses 5,000 people. And where was Korach that day? He was there. And he watched Moshe take 3 million people and stuff them into an area of 5,000 people. And he was there at Har Sinai when Hashem spoke to Moshe, and he saw it b'nevuah. B'nevuah doesn't mean... b'nevuah means he reached a tremendously high madrig. He knew emes la'amitoi, that there was nobody in the history of the world like Moshe Rabbeinu. You know, one of the Yud Gimel Ikrim, let's say somebody believes that Moshe Rabbeinu was a great person, he was only equal to Avraham Avinu. What do you call such a person? A kaifer. Right? If somebody says Moshe Rabbeinu was very great, but he was only as great as Yeshaya, he's a kaifer. One of the Yud Gimel Ikrim is nobody ever prophesied like Moshe, and Korach knew that emes amita because he became a navi and he saw the Rebbeinu Shem speak to Moshe. So what's the man thinking? Korach pikeachaya. He's a smart person. Rashi says. What was Korach thinking? It's a very interesting pasuk. At the toward the end of the episode, Bezois Teidon Ki Hashem Shalachani, Perek Tazayim Pasuk Chavchas. La'asos is called Amasim Ha'ela. This will prove that Hashem sent me. It's the number 17, Arachaim HaKadosh. Ki loy mi libi. It wasn't in my heart. Listen to the words. This will prove that Hashem sent me to do these things. Ki loy mi libi, it wasn't in my heart. What are the words adding? Ki loy mi libi. Moshe Rabbeinu should say, this proves that Hashem sent me. What does it add? Ki loy mi libi. Let's try to understand why was Korach swallowed by the ground. I mean, when was that's not a typical way to go. The Gemara says, La'maves toitza'is, there are 1,000 kinds of mitzvahs, and this is not even one of them. There are many ways to go, and the ground turning into a mouth and swallowing somebody up is not a typical way to go. Why was Korach swallowed by the ground? So the following approach is found in two Svarim, in the Bar Yosef of Rabbi Yosef Tzvi Salant, and in the Sefer Sam Derech of Reb Simcha Zisel Broida. It's an amazing approach. Moshe Rabbeinu, the Gemara says in Yevamos and elsewhere, Masechta Shabbos. Moshe did 3 things on his own, and Hashem was maskim to him. Moshe Rabbeinu broke the luchos, Moshe Rabbeinu pushed off Kabbalas HaTorah, and Moshe Rabbeinu separated from his wife. So the Gemara says, how do we know Hashem was maskim to Moshe? Moshe separated from his wife, because after Matan Torah, Hashem told Klal Yisrael, Lech, Emor Lohem, Shuvu Lochem Lo'elechem, tell the rest of Klal Yisrael to go back to their wives, V'yata poi amaydi madi, you stay with me. So that means Hashem was maskim to Moshe Rabbeinu's decision to separate from his wife. As Tosfos is found in Yevamis and in Shabbos. It says, Tosfos, how do you know Moshe came up with this plan on his own? It's number 13 on the sheet if you want. How do you know Moshe Rabbeinu came up with this plan on his own and Hashem was maskim to him? Maybe Hashem told him, Moshe, you always have to be on standby. I could come to you at any moment, so you have to be Parish Mina Isha. How does the Gemara know Moshe came up with the idea on his own and Hashem was maskim? Maybe Hashem told him to do it. So Tosfos says, if Hashem would have told Moshe to do it, then Miriam never would have spoke Lashon Hara about Moshe. We know what was the Lashon Hara Miriam said about Moshe. Miriam said, who does Moshe think he is? Hashem comes to me, I don't have to separate from my husband. And Aaron says, Hashem speaks to me, I don't have to separate Mino Isha. So they spoke Lashon Hara about Moshe. Now if Hashem would have told Moshe to separate from his wife, then Miriam never would have spoke Lashon Hara. She only spoke Lashon Hara because Moshe came up with this idea on his own. Okay, that's Tosfos. Frak Tosfos. Okay, so Moshe came up with the idea on his own. But Hashem was maskim. So if Hashem was maskim, so how could Miriam speak Lashon Hara? In other words, Moshe came up with this great plan. He's going to be Parish Mina Isha. Hashem said, Yasher Koichacha, you did the right thing. So if Hashem gave Moshe haskama, how could Miriam speak Lashon Hara about Moshe? Hashem told him to do it. You're right, Hashem didn't tell Moshe to do it originally. Moshe came up with the plan on his own originally, but Hashem told him it's a good idea. So once it's a good idea, what's Miriam speaking Lashon Hara about Moshe? By the way, just as an aside, Rabbi Chanan has a kasha in the Kavetz Mamarim. It comes out that what did Miriam say about Moshe? Miriam said, who does Moshe think he is? We're also Nevi'im. So that means Miriam equated Moshe to Shar Nevi'im. So why is Miriam being accused of Lashon Hara? It's much worse than Lashon Hara. It's Apikarsos. That's Rabbi Chanan's kasha. And Rabbi Chanan says, no, it only became an ikar of Emunah when Hashem said to Moshe, you know who Moshe is? Lo yichein avdi Moshe b'chol beisi nemanu. This is when it became one of the Yigim Ikrim. That's Rabbi Chanan. But the bottom line is, Hashem had already given Moshe haskama. If Hashem gave Moshe haskama, then why would Miriam speak Lashon Hara? Ready? Here's the Chiddush of the day. Says Tosfos, Avada, Hashem told Moshe 1,000% you did the right thing. But you know why Hashem gave Moshe a haskama? Because b'derech sha'adam roitza leilech melich anaisai. Moshe wanted to be Parish Mina Isha. So Hashem said, that's what you want. Here's the Ishur, here's the haskama, no problem. Miriam's problem with Moshe is, why did you want that? If you wouldn't have wanted it, then Hashem wouldn't have given you a haskama. Hashem gave you a haskama because you wanted it. But if you would have been an honest person and a better person, you wouldn't have wanted something which is wrong. Hashem only went along with your plan. Basically, Miriam accused Moshe of abusing the koyach of being a tzaddik. In other words, Moshe Rabbeinu is the greatest person who ever lived, the greatest tzaddik who ever lived. Whatever Moshe wants, Hashem says, no, I'll give it to you, no problem. It doesn't mean just because Hashem said you did, it's okay, it's a good thing to do, that it's really a good thing to do. Sometimes Hashem goes along with the plans and the desires of tzaddikim because they want it even though it's not the right thing. Just occurred to me, you know the famous Gemara in Brachos, the Gemara says that Ram Gamliel, when he was deposed as Nasi, so he had Chalishas Hadas. He felt bad that he kept so many Bachrim out of the Beis HaMedrash, right? So they showed him in a dream a clear glass with ashes inside. In other words, they were telling Ram Gamliel, you're right for keeping out Talmidim who weren't good on the inside. And then the Gemara says, no, Shamayim didn't think Ram Gamliel was right. They just wanted to make him feel good because to go along with his shita. Which, by the way, is a tremendous aside. Just because someone is being matzliach, it doesn't mean they're doing the right thing. Just because Hashem gives siyata d'shmaya, it doesn't mean that's emes. Hashem will give siyata d'shmaya to good people, sometimes even when they do the wrong thing. That's the yisoid of Tosfos. Tosfos' yisoid is Miriam said, I know Hashem told you to be Parish Ben Isha, but Hashem told you because He wanted it, and therefore you shouldn't have wanted it. Comes Korach, and Korach says, Moshe, I know you're the greatest person who ever lived. And you're the greatest Navi. And you're the greatest, and Rabbeinu Yonah writes, the same way Moshe Rabbeinu was the greatest Navi who ever lived, and he was the greatest Anav who ever lived, he likewise excelled in every other character trait. But here's Korach's taina to Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe, I have emuna shalema that Hashem told you to appoint Aaron. Because look, I was there when you stuffed 3 million people into a little closet that holds 5,000 people. And I was there when Aaron brought down the Shekhinah. And I was there on Har Sinai when Hashem spoke to you. I don't doubt for a moment that you made up that Aaron should be the Kohen Gadol. Avada, Hashem told you that Aaron should be the Kohen Gadol. But you know why Hashem told you that Aaron should be the Kohen Gadol? Because you want Aaron to be the Kohen Gadol. You shouldn't have wanted your brother to be the Kohen Gadol. You should have wanted the best man for the job to be the Kohen Gadol. So I'm accusing you, Korach says, of abusing your power of tzaddik. That's the mahalach of Reb Simcha Zisel Broida and the Be'er Yosef. That Korach, based on this Tosfos in Shabbos and this Tosfos in Yevamis, Korach's taina on Moshe was, I know who you are. I believe everything you do is because Hashem told you. But Hashem only tells you because that's what you want. You should have wanted the right thing. You should have, when you daven Shemona Esrei, you shouldn't have davened Ribono Shel Olam, please make Aaron the Kohen Gadol. You should have davened, Hashem, appoint the man who will bring the biggest Kiddush Hashem to the world, and then I would have got the job, because I'm greater than Aaron. So now, that's a very profound taina. That's a very complex taina. That's a very sophisticated taina. That was the taina of Korach. So you know what Korach, look how smart he is. Look at what a big pikach he is. Korach says, you don't think Hashem goes along with what the tzaddikim want? Korach gathers 250 men. And Moshe Rabbeinu looks at them and says, who are these men? These are not the Chosh Mishpat guys. These are not the Yoredea. These are the people who know how to be Ma'aber the Shana. You know what Koyach, these type of Chachamim have? The Gemara tells us in Masechta Rosh Hashanah that we have a drasha, Atem, Atem, Atem. That if a Chacham says that Rosh Chodesh is tomorrow, B'shoigeg, he makes a mistake, we follow that, Rosh Chodesh is tomorrow. And if a Chacham says B'mezid, Rosh Chodesh was yesterday, we follow that. And if a Chacham says Rosh Chodesh is a specific day, B'mezid, B'pshia, B'mered, it doesn't matter. Atem, 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 Afilu Shogim, Afilu Mazim, Afilu Mutayim. This is the one area in Torah that even the Chachamim intentionally want to make an error. We're going to follow them. You know the famous Mishnah in Rosh Hashanah. The Mishnah says that Rabbi Yeshua held Yom Kippur was on a specific day. And Rabbi Gamliel disagreed. He held Yom Kippur as the next day. And Gamliel ordered Rabbi Yeshua to appear on the day that Rabbi Yeshua held was Yom Kippur. He said, I want to see you with your money belt. I want to see you with your vachadik azachin. And Rabbi Yeshua didn't know what to do. He went to Rabbi Akiva. And Rabbi Akiva said, you got to go. You got to go. Rabbi Yeshua said, what do you mean? I'm being mechal Yom Kippur. He says, you're not being mechal Yom Kippur. Even if Rabbi Gamliel is b'mezid, whenever the man says it's Rosh Chodesh, then he's, so to speak, twisting the hand of the Ribono Shel Olam. The Ribono Shel Olam will go along with the decision of the Chachmei Yisrael. So Korach says to Moshe, I'm going to prove to you that the reason why Aaron was selected to be the Kohen Gadol is because you're twisting the hands of Hashem. You asked Hashem to make Aaron the Kohen Gadol, therefore Hashem is going along with it. And Moshe says, where do we ever see such a thing? So Korach is very smart. He got 250 guys that what do they do for a living? They twist Hashem's hands. The Eidim come in, and whatever they say, what they say. B'shoigeg, b'mezid, b'mutayim. Their job is, they decide, and Hashem sits there and says, I'll go along with it. Hashem gives the Yeshua. Korach didn't get people who knew what Masechta you're learning. Kedushin, they didn't get people who knew Masechta Kedushin, he didn't know. He got people who knew how to twist the hand of Shemayim Kiviyachal, that whatever they say, the Ribbon Hashem goes along with it. So Moshe Rabbeinu responds to Korach. Moshe Rabbeinu says, you're making a mistake. The appointment of the kahuna is not like Iber Chodesh V'Shana. The appointment of kahuna is like day and night. Boiker. If the Chachamim say, Rabbi say, it's the day right now. Everyone put on the tefillin. You look outside, it's pitch black. So we say, they afilu b'shoigeg, afilu b'meiz, afilu. No. If the Chachamim say day is night, night is day, we don't listen to them. It doesn't matter what they say. The Metzias is the Metzias. They have no koyach to change Yoim v'layla, only the Yoim of the Chodesh. So Moshe Rabbeinu says, no, this is not a matter of Iber Shana, Iber Chodesh. This is a matter of Boiker v'yoyda Hashem asashar loi. And Moshe Rabbeinu says the following very compelling argument. He says, "Bezois teidon ki Hashem shalachani." You think I made it up? This is going to prove that Hashem sent me. And then Korach had an even more sophisticated taina. Korach says, Moshe, I don't think you davened and you asked Hashem to make Aaron the Kohen Gadol. Here's what I think you did. You wanted Aaron to be the Kohen Gadol. And Ritzon Yirei of Yaseh, the Rebbe Hashem does the will of those who fear him. So you, so to speak, very cleverly manipulated Hashem to allow Aaron to be appointed, because you wouldn't say in Shema Koleinu, Hashem, make Aaron the Kohen Gadol. You just say, Hashem, whoever you want, you know how much, and I'll leave it like that. Moshe Rabbeinu left it. So Moshe Rabbeinu says, Bezois teidon ki Hashem shalachani, ki loi milibi, it was not in my heart. I didn't even think it. In the heart, Moshe Rabbeinu says, in my heart of heart, all there was Rebbeinu Hashem, I would like you to appoint the man who's best for the job. So now you chap now? So says the Gemara that the Arab took took the Rabbi Bar Chana to the desert, and the Arab said, you want to know where Korach is? Under the ground. Now, one more thing. The Gemara Nedarim says that in the rebellion of Korach, Shemesh Yareach Mizavul. Shemesh Yareach Amad Zavula. The sun and the moon stopped. Remember that Gemara Nedarim? They learned Nedarim over here? You learned Nedarim here? You did already, 3 years ago. 6 years ago. So Mustama, you remember. One time, when I was in Koilel, we learned Masechta Shabbos. So they sent us to speak and learning with Rav Shmuel Birnbaum. So he asked us a shaila, like something we learned in the beginning of the year. So we said we didn't remember. He said, oh, you don't remember, so you learned it 70 years ago? He said, it's not shaykh not to remember something unless you learned it 70 years ago. Anyway, so what does that have to do with anything? Oh, the Gemara Nedarim, you learned it 6 years ago. The Gemara says the sun and the moon said, "That's it. Stop. I retire." The sun and the moon said, "If you're going to allow Korach to rebel against Moshe Rabbeinu, we retire. I am no longer going to shine." The sun said, "I'm going out of business. I'm retiring. I'm moving to Florida." The moon said, "I'm moving to Tom's River," and that's it. We're going out of business. We're not going to. So the Bar Yosef asks, this is not like the first time there were rebellions in Klal Yisrael. Why all of a sudden the sun and the moon are saying they're going to retire? After the Chet HaMeraglim, why didn't the sun and the moon say, that's it? Klal Yisrael, they don't want to go into Eretz Yisrael. That's it. We retire. We're going out of business. the Gemara says, V'hibitu acharei Moshe, that Moshe Rabbeinu, when he came late to the Beis Medrash, people, where was he? Well, maybe he was having a long breakfast. If he came early, they said, why did he leave so early? Maybe he can't get... Why didn't the sun and the moon say it? Klal Yisrael, they're being so brazen, that's it, we're going out of business. Says the Bar Yosef, the sun and the moon took a particular insult when it came to this rebellion of Korach against Moshe Rabbeinu, because they were being marshaled to try to support Korach. Korach was saying, I'll prove to you Moshe Rabbeinu is using his power of tzaddik, because the Ibr Yar and the Ibr Chodesh are dependent on the Chachmei Yisrael. So Korach was marshalling the sun and the moon to support his argument. So the sun and the moon says, Korach is using me, that's it, we're going out of business. So therefore, the Gemara says that every 30 days, Korach surfaces. And he says, Moshe emes, Sairasai emes, v'anachnu b'adoim. What day of the month does Korach surface? Says the Bar Yosef, Rosh Chodesh. Because he has to be moideh al ha'emes on the day that he tried to use to support his position, that Chachmei Yisrael have the ability to, so to speak, twist the arm of Hashem, which they do. But when it came to the appointment of Aaron HaKohen, it was not Moshe asking Hashem, it was not Moshe willing Hashem, it was the Leiv Tahar of Moshe Rabbeinu. If we would have gone and seen the heart of Moshe Rabbeinu, in the heart of Moshe Rabbeinu, and the deep subconscious of Moshe Rabbeinu, all we would have seen is Taras Halev. He wasn't rooting for Aaron, he wasn't hoping for Aaron, he was hoping the Rebbeinu Shalom should appoint whoever the Rebbeinu Shalom deems fit. Now, just think for a moment. The whole miracle of the earth swallowing Korach was to show what? That Hashem gave the Torah to Klal Yisrael and Har Sinai? Nobody questioned that. Was to show that Moshe taught the Torah accurately? Nobody questioned that. The whole miracle of Korach was to show the complete Taharas Halev of Adonenu Moshe Rabbeinu. Think about the lengths that the Rebbeinu Shalom went to uphold in the Be'enei Klal Yisrael for all generations the complete Taharas Halev Moshe Rabbeinu. It's really remarkable the importance of the Ikar, of our Emunah in Moshe Rabbeinu as somebody who had such absolute Tahara that he did not will in any way his own brother to become the Kohen Gadol. So why was he swallowed by the ground? The question of Korach was a question of the authenticity of the Torah Sheba'al Peh. When Hashem offered the Torah to Klal Yisrael, we said Na'aseh v'nishma. Yeah? On the other hand, the Gemara says in Shabbos, Hashem said, if you're not Makabel the Torah, I'm going to drop the mountain on your head. So what was it? So the Medrash Tanchuma says, Torah Shebachsav, we said, Na'aseh v'nishma. Torah Sheba'al Peh, Hashem was going to bury Klal Yisrael alive. So you see, says the Hafla, the punishment of not being Makabel the Torah is being buried alive. Or the Gemara says, Kol ha-mis'atzel b'hespedoi shel chacham roi l'koivroi b'chayav. Anyone who is lazy, Gemara says in Shabbos Kofei, is worthy to be buried alive, because if you're not maspid a chacham properly, then you don't appreciate the Torah Sheba'al Peh, then it's nacham al kaf aleim har kegigis. By the way, the story goes, the Chassam Sofer used to go Ben Azmanim to the mineral baths in Pechani and Carlsbad. The Rebbes today, they still go to those mineral baths. And one time, the Chassam Sofer was in the mineral bath. In the mineral bath, it's very hot. And by the way, the Chassam Sofer was able to tolerate heat more than anyone who ever lived. They say he was able to drink a hot coffee that's like the temperatures are lo yu'uman k'yisa. So it was very hot in the bath. And all of a sudden, the iron doors started to close. Now, if you get stuck in the mineral bath, Chas Hashem, you're dead. So Chassam Sofer immediately, he's thinking to himself, what could he have done to deserve being koivroi b'chayav? So you remember, he says, it must be A tzaddik died and he didn't give a proper hesped. He was makabel himself. As soon as he gets out, he's going to find out who he is and he's going to be masked with him. Sure enough, he found out that the ptira of Reb David Deitch. Reb David Deitch is mentioned in Shams Teshuvas Noda B'Yehuda. He writes, Ish koshe kebarzel Reb David Deitch. So the Chassam Sofer ran out of the mineral bath and he was maspid Reb David Deitch. So if there's a question, if somebody challenges the oral law, the Tarsha B'al Peh, the punishment is kovroi b'chayav. And therefore that's what happened to Korach. Korach challenged that means part of Tarsha B'al Peh is not just the content. Part of Tarsha B'al Peh are to have emunah in the Chachmei Yisrael of the generations, that their hearts and their personalities were tahirim, were kedoshim, and they gave us over the Torah in the most pure way, without any desire for their own kavod, but they gave over the Torah just to be mekadeshem shamayim and lahagdil Torah lahadira. And that's the limud. And you're learning Kedushin Samach Vav right now. What's in Kedushin Samach Vav? The hafla. Okay, Gavaldik. So there you go. And I didn't even know that. Unbelievable. Okay, so thank you everybody for staying over time. And you could take a short break and then we'll continue. Thank you very much for having me. You should have tremendous Siyat Shema in the new Makoim. Bez Hashem L'Hagdil Torah L'Hadira.
No more water.
Huh?
No more water.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.